Hey, y'all. Welcome to season 2 of the Reckless Optimist podcast. I'm so glad that you're here. This is a show about hope, strength, perseverance, and resilience. Let's get into it. Hey, everyone. Today on the podcast, we have Hans. Hans is my husband of 6 months. He is an amazing, amazing guy. He is quiet and introverted, so it took a lot of guts and some vulnerability for him to come on the show. We've talked about him coming on for a while now, and I'm super proud of him. He has quite the story to tell. When you look at him, you would never know what he's gone through because he carries it so well. He's very strong, confident, and steady, but he's been through a lot in his life, and tonight he is going to share his story. So I know you guys are going to love this story. Let's get into it. Hey, everyone. Help me welcome Hans to the podcast.
Hey, everybody.
I'm so excited that you're here. We have talked about doing this for a long time.
Definitely.
I think that a lot of people are curious about you because I am extroverted and you are the opposite of that.
Absolutely. Definitely more elusive.
Yes, which I think is very intriguing, mysterious. But yeah, this is your turn now to tell your story, and I'm excited to hear it as well. I have to tell the listeners how me and you know each other. So we are married. We have been married for almost 6 months. We actually are leaving for our honeymoon tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Yes. So me and you actually met when we were kids. I think I was maybe 14 and you were 18. Is that
Probably
right?
Yeah, somewhere in there. Definitely. I was a
Somewhere in there.
senior, you're a freshman.
Yep. Yeah. So we grew up together in a very small town in North Georgia, Raven County. And yeah, we were friends back then. We didn't date back then. We were just friends. I kind of ran around with your younger brother. We were similar ages. And then we reconnected much later in life, 20 years later, post both of our divorces. And the rest is history.
Yeah, just a fairy tale from now on.
It has been a fairy tale.
Absolutely.
I'm super excited for you to share your story. It's a very powerful one, and I think a lot of people are going to be able to relate to what you have to say. The quote that I picked for your episode is by Ernest Hemingway, and the quote, I love how it's described. The quote is described as lean, simple, and direct, and I felt like that embodied you as well. So the quote goes, "There's nothing noble in being superior to your fellow man. True nobility is being superior to your former self." What does that quote mean to you?
I like that. I think for centuries, people have focused on being the best in a people group. The world is driven, marketed around external validation. And I think in today's society, that looks like who's got the nicest truck or the best watch or who's got the fakest looking lips. So we invest so much time and money in vanity. And, the real win, I think, lies in how we develop ourselves and how we see ourselves, not how the world sees us. So being better than you were yesterday, it's going to require you to be vulnerable, hard. But at the end of the day, if you can be vulnerable and honest with yourself with some humility, that's how you're going to grow. I think the encouraging part of the quote is that there's not a formal metric. You're not doing it for anyone else. It's not something you can choose to share where you're at and where your progress with others if you would like. But it's truly an exercise between who you want to be. And sometimes you make big gains. And sometimes when life is heavy, you can be tired and reflect on where you have come. You don't have to make a gain every day. That's not the purpose, is to constantly win. We're not perfect. But for me personally, I like to look at scripture and the fruits of the Spirit. It's definitely a good target and a good metric for me as far as character. I mean, it's who we are when nobody's looking. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. And I've never found a day where I could even remotely get close to any of all of those at one time. So I think any of those are a noble win.
I love it. That was very well said. And I agree with you. I think when I hear this quote, it reminds me that this is about self-improvement and not competition, right? This is about improving yourself and not competing with the person next to you. Because I think when you focus on being better than someone else rather than better than who you were, it's more shallow and empty and endless, But when you work on like that spiral dynamics, right? Like spiraling up to higher levels of being, higher levels of consciousness, higher levels of spirituality, you're really just doing yourself a better service to you and everyone around you, everyone in your circle, I think self-improvement, yes, Obviously, it benefits yourself, but it benefits everyone in your arena. When you improve yourself, there's such like the butterfly effect of it all. When people see that you're working on yourself, it motivates them to work on themselves too. So I love this quote. I love how you interpreted it. So we are actually going to get into your story. Very excited for you to tell it. I know it takes a lot of vulnerability and strength to share your story, especially yours. So wherever you feel comfortable, just take us back.
You mentioned it before. We grew up in North Georgia. I grew up on Lake Burton, possibly the most amazing place on earth. Lake Burton community is a very vacation-rich environment, and most of the local folks there, everybody has some sort of task that supports the tourism that we see in Raven County. But Dad was a home builder primarily on Lake Burton. My mom was a nurse practitioner. I was the oldest of three boys, and the lake is just kind of what we did. It reminds me of Dawson's Creek was the hop one back when we were little, but it's kind of like that. When everybody's there, it's all hands on deck to serve the money coming into the county. But when everybody's gone, it's just kind of a free for all. It's pretty much nothing to do. So most of our life was shaped around seasonal vacation crowd. So, and I think because of that, drinking was normalized early on in that community. A lot of times, even very responsibly. It was just kind of the norm there, and it was the norm with the parents. A lot of the times, not that it was super common, but it wasn't super taboo. So I worked summers at the marina. We did a lot of water skiing and spent a lot of time on the lake. We did a lot of fly fishing as a family with my dad, my brother, and I. And then everybody loves Georgia, but Athens was intimidating to me. It was too big. So I went to Clemson. We lived close. It was like 40 miles from Clayton to Clemson, and I just liked the small feel of that. Didn't really want to be in the college environment, but it was kind of the next step of what you do. So normal drinking pattern there. We were, while I was there, the number one party school in the nation. So maybe normal was a little elevated to what different normal is. I got along with pretty much everybody there and blended well. I was on the water ski team, which was a little bit more athletic, but then, most of my afternoons I was on horseback drinking beer at the rodeo arena. Just kind of, I could melt into all of those groups. Like while I was there, my brother and I, when he graduated high school, wanted to go to Wyoming. So he and I went and packed mules at a guest ranch for a summer. That was a lot of fun. I mean, we would ride 7 to 14 days through the wilderness, about 120 miles to the Wind River mountain range with just on horseback. And we were kind of responsible for guest clients. I think it's on that trip where you learn to drink whiskey, because you can't pack a whole lot of beer on a horse with you. So you drink hot black velvet whiskey out of a squirt bottle from a saddlebag. And it was good. It's disgusting. It tasted good out there. So a lot of fishing out there. Did a lot of the things that I love. I love being outdoors, a lot of wildlife. Come back to school, still just kind of more in that rodeo crowd. That was my group of guys, and my core friend group was at the rodeo arena at the school. We had our own arena and our horses were there, and it's just what we did. We were out there every afternoon. Those buddies finally graduated. Thank goodness. I needed to get out of there. I fit 4 years of college in 5 years. So that fifth year, I kind of buckled down and got my grades up and improved so I could graduate. Moved to Rock Hill after that as far as making a good living, and I'd grown up in construction, so I started just working back in construction for a family friend in Charlotte. I lived with some college buddies. We kind of picked up where we left off and being the wild crowd. We had lived on this neat little house out on, surrounded by just hundreds of acres of farms. So all night was four-wheelers and fire barrel in the backyard, just having a good time. My parents divorced, and my dad took that really, really hard for me. I mean, it was kind of hard, but I was an adult. It hurt to see my parents struggle. He called me one night and was talking about suicide, and they hit me hard. So that Monday, I took my phone and all my work stuff, and I took it into work, turned it in. I packed up what I could fit in my truck, and I went home. I never really went back. My buddies from down there brought a lot of my things to his house to me, but I kind of just like freaked out, like somebody's got to save him. He had been my rock for so long, and I just felt obligated to save him. So, I don't really want to spend a lot of time talking about his death, but I tell you, for the folks out there that are listening, if you're struggling with a family or friend that thinks that you can save someone from suicide, you can't. A lot of prayer on your part and point them towards professional help. So December 2005 changed me. Dad was kind of my hero. And he was so strong for my whole life, and it was wild to see him struggle. It's like the roles almost reversed. Here I was, a 22-year-old privileged kid who had never known anything but good times and what seemed like a very normal family upbringing. I wasn't equipped to handle it. Ultimately, in 2007, December 2007, he took his life. That was hard. Probably the 2 years leading to that was more damaging to kind of my inner self than the actual suicide itself, because it's really hard carrying someone else's burden like that. But in 2007, he told me he loved me. He walked out on the porch and ended his life. I think I'd heard the threats of suicide for so long, for 2 years, that it kind of was like the boy who cried wolf, and I never really thought it, and I didn't give a whole lot of thought to it that night when he told me he was going to. And I just remember thinking, well, that son of a bitch actually did it. It crushed me. I think something died in me that night. And in the next 3 years, I was really just floating, no clue what to do other than numbing the pain. So I was wild before. I think I was reckless for the next 3 years, but always having this like sense of responsibility. Like I wouldn't drink and drive, or I wouldn't. And I always knew where there was some kind of line, but I somehow wouldn't cross it. But I'd never really spent that much time on the edge in my life. I've always been pretty responsible, even in the irresponsible actions. So a lot of times I was appearing happy, but I was just lost. I tried multiple counselors. None of them worked. I think most of them were all focused on talk therapy. I didn't need to talk about it. I would talk about it to anyone who wanted to listen. I don't think I ever had a hard time accepting reality and what really happened. So for someone to ask me how that feels, my response usually was not very nice. So tell me how the F it makes you feel. That's not what I'm here for. I know how it makes me feel. I need tools. I needed guidance. I think the one person that I relied on my entire life for guidance all of a sudden just left in that way. And it was like I had trust issues after that. How are you going to trust someone, get close to somebody if they're going to leave? Finding therapy with tools really helped, it kind of changed my life. So we'll talk about that a little bit. In 2010, I was still in Clayton because I had just kind of dropped my entire life and moved there. I started a welding business while I was there, but the economy had all but just slowed to a screeching halt. All of my welding business was supporting the lake, like everything else there. And 07, 08 was hard. And then everyone on the lake stopped spending money. Decided just to go work in a job temporary. I was held in my mind, it was a temporary thing to go work in manufacturing just to get through a slump and maybe get back to doing my business. But I did fall in love with it. Once I was there, I started working around so many different people, and I was a supervisor on an off shift, and we had a lot of fun. And I guess I've always been kind of a natural leader. So it fit my personality, it fit my persona, and the structure really helped me in that time of life because I was working 7 days a week, sometimes a little bit at a time. But when you're self-employed, you have the weight of the world on your shoulders. And it seemed like you either had a lot of money or none. Those valleys were tough. So this gave a lot of financially and just time management wise. I had a lot of structure and could really get my life back on track, so to speak. So also in 2010, I was still running pretty wild, more on the weekends on drinking. I'm in the pain. I'm trying to just escape life for the most part. And I kind of just hit a wall. I think I did bury a lot of my feelings during that time, but I at least started functioning more of what would be a better track. So in 2012, I moved with the same company. They had a plant in Kentucky. They wanted me to go and help make some changes, and it was a good opportunity and a fresh start. And so it seemed like a logical solution, and it wasn't that bad. While I was there in 2014, I got married. I had an amazing daughter who I cherish. And then in 22, I did get divorced. COVID, I think, had a large part to what finally put some finality to that. COVID was crazy, where everybody was piled in the house and we were all stuck together and you couldn't go out. And to be such an introverted person, I really do need a lot of, I like to be in the presence of other people. And that was weird to be confined in a house. It was, starting to get turbulent. I don't want to speak poorly of my marriage. I think my ex-wife's a wonderful person. We're not the right people for each other. And so when you put any people that together that for that long, it gets pretty wild. So I started drinking more, and being in Kentucky, bourbon's great. And I never was, other than drinking whiskey in Wyoming, I never was a liquor drinker. I was a mild beer drinker. I could drink like beer all night and still somehow maintain a level of composure where I was always in control. I never wanted to lose control. I never wanted to be able to not get out of whatever situation I was in, and I might not be able to drive, but I could logically figure out what to do and where to go. And man, the bourbon, that's a whole nother world. You got to where you could drink a lot of it. But I still, that put me closest to the edge, I think, on drinking. And I think it drove just the desire for a lot more change, because I don't like to be out of control. And I could feel myself getting close to that edge of being where drinking would become a problem. And I just never, I'm not going to be slave to anything. Never have been, never plan to. So, the divorce part was hard. It impacted my daughter. She's very much a daddy's girl. Watching her struggle, I took a lot of that blame on myself and trying to fix it. But ultimately, I think I also watched her struggle while I was married, and I was not me. I was trying to be somebody, trying to be strong and trying to do all these things, but I ultimately was also not myself. So that was a hard thing for me, and watching her, fast forward into that, going into today's dating world, that's wild. So much changed from when I got married till then. And I tried online dating. It was terrible. Everyone's hiding behind the screen, putting a false self forward. Very disappointing. I wasn't during that time drinking a lot either. I had slowed down and a lot of times wouldn't drink at all. But my uncle had cancer, and everybody kind of just rallied on board with him because he was going to have to stop drinking. And we all said, oh, well, we'll just do it with you, and I found a lot of reward in that and felt a lot better. But then dating when you're sober curious is even harder, because we live in this world that just like everything you do is drink, and you go out on a date, well, you're going to go get drinks, or you go to dinner and you're going to have drinks. It's kind of ingrained in everything that we do. I don't really enjoy being around people that are drinking in excess. I struggle with that. I never really liked to be around drunk people, like socially drinking people, sure, but I don't like to be around drunk people. It was a little too overstimulating for me. You and I, we reconnected as friends when you were going through a separation and divorce, and kind of just fast forward today. So it just feels like the perfect love story.
You tell your story so well. I know that you were nervous. I know this is not a normal day for you. This is a normal day for me, right? Podcasting and being in this, world of public speaking, but this isn't yours. And I just really appreciate you sharing your story. And you did a phenomenal job. I'm so proud of you right now. I'm a proud wife.
Thank you.
I love your story. I think a lot of people get you wrong. You have a very Southern accent and you're quiet, but you are like one of the most intelligent, insightful, deep people I've ever met in my life. And I think that's one of the reasons why I fell in love with you. But yeah, I think looking at you, you're so strong and like steady. I don't think anyone would ever assume that you had gone through what you had gone through. You carry it well, but it doesn't mean that it wasn't heavy,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I have some follow-up questions for you.
Okay.
When you talk about your dad, and thank you for sharing that part of your story, how did what happened to you shape you as a person?
I think I had to grow up fast. I don't think it took away a lot. I think it robbed me of some softness. I can be fairly rigid, and I struggle to identify with empathy some now, I think, because of that, because I used to be a lot softer. I think at times, whenever I get close to touchy things, I get on guard a little bit, and that could come off as coldness and not caring, but I'm really just kind of, I feel like it's more of a trigger that makes me draw up inside and remember hard times. I think it's easy to get that savior complex, and you can't save anybody, as much as but every time I would try to get him right on track, there would be drinking was a big part of his problem. He struggled with depression, and he was possibly the most fun human you've ever been around whenever he was drinking. Growing up in Appalachia, he played bluegrass music, and it was anytime anyone got around him, it was a full-on party. We were having fun. We were playing music and dancing and buck dancing in the living room, big fire. He was the life of the party, and he was incredible. Sober, and when he was drinking, it was a lot of fun. He was never mean, never obnoxious. It was just fun. really, really fun human being. But what everybody didn't see was the next 2 to 3 days that I got to experience of the extremely severe depression and just in those cycles. And so I think that also put another gut check in me that I would remember those times when I would be drinking, especially after his death. I would drink fairly heavy, always still within control, heavier than I should, enough to wake up with a hangover. And that wasn't my normal. I don't like to be hungover, never have.
Yeah. We talk a lot about generational trauma on the show. And in some ways, you have broken yours. And the reason I bring this up is, do you talk about what happened with your father with your daughter?
She knows what's happened. We haven't talked about it a whole lot. I mean, she's 10, so, and she's extremely mature for her age, and her emotional intelligence is pretty off the charts. I think she had to learn to navigate the tension between her mother and I through COVID, where we were all together for 24/7. I'd learned to read people. I can feel a room. I can read people from the moment I see them. And she's kind of that way.
You bring up a really good point. You are the definition of an empath. You absorb everyone's energy when we walk into a room. Do you feel like you were born that way, or did this happen after the trauma that you went through?
I think a little bit of both. I mean, the trauma definitely elevated it. But, trauma's funny. When I finally found a good counselor, I said in my story that I would come back to this. I found a good counselor. I had a kind of just a nasty relationship post divorce that I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about people because it was interesting. It kind of pushed me to get a little bit more counsel. But I went to a counselor that does EMDR, and the first thing we talked about when we came in, she's like, what are your goals? I said, well, my number one goal is we're going to do work. Like, I'm not here to talk to you. I can talk to my friends. I can talk to my family. I got lots of people to talk to that know how to say, how does that make you feel? We're not doing that. I need work and I need homework. If you don't put me to work and have expectations of me before I come back in, this isn't going to work. And I think that totally changed her and I's dynamic from the get-go. She understood I had high expectations of her as a counselor, and she was going to have to get her degree and put it to use. Like, I wasn't there for her to scroll her phone behind her clipboard while I'm talking about everything that I have no trouble talking about. So, I think, so we went straight into that. She did EMDR, which was, more like a cognition type, reprogramming your subconscious ultimately, and through tapping. And that's an interesting exercise because you go your whole life thinking that most of the things that are bothering me subconsciously are going to be the big T, the dad suicide. That was, how could you ever recover for something so big? And it's wild, the little things that came up from childhood that I would have never have imagined bothered me, and processing and going through that process totally changed a lot for me. I grew tremendously through that and counseling. And, if for folks that are struggling with trauma, or, I think a good gut check on that is go back to the beginning and the quote. If you struggle to be open with yourself, you need to think about doing some of that, because there's something in there. Psychologically, we kind of have some of that stunted emotional growth from childhood and those times where they bothered you. And that's where the MDR therapy kind of goes back and helps you process some of those, so you can let your inner child kind of be a child and come on and be an adult in times of struggle. So I encourage that. That therapy was amazing for me. I worked through a lot of things I didn't know were bothering me, and I grew tremendously because of it. And I think I really can take more of what I learned through that process and apply it myself without a counselor towards what I went through with dad, because it really wasn't. It's all the little T stuff that I think was affecting me more than the big.
Yeah, absolutely. As a provider, I recommend EMDR to anyone that's gone through something very significant in their life, or you can tell that there is some subconscious rewiring that needs to happen. I do think some people can benefit just from talk therapy. I love how you went into your counselor and laid out the boundaries of what you needed. But I also think some talk therapy in patients that maybe not have as big of issues, or, smaller scale, sometimes just that talking can be very cathartic and very helpful. Sometimes it's scary just to even call a therapist and be like, I need help. Like, if you're even doing that, that's a huge step in the right direction. And I love that you did that. I also think as a man, it's even more impressive, because I feel like there's this stigma of men aren't supposed to talk about their feelings. They're supposed to be strong. And I hate that stigma.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. It's definitely, a lot of we don't talk about it as much as men. I mean, I encourage all men to go, but I'm kind of just that odd duck that's out there and is very confident in myself, but also, try to be very humble in life. But I mean, I think that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to talk about your relationship with alcohol because I have all different types of people on my show. Some people that have to get sober and some people that choose to get sober. You were definitely someone that it was more of a choice. I know when we've talked about this before, you had gotten a watch, a readable watch that gave you a lot of data. And kind of give us that story about the watch and how that impacted your choice to not drink anymore.
Okay, I'm very. I just say I'm an extremely analytical person, so you can tell me something all day long if I can't see it or measure it. I don't know that I would believe it a whole lot, but I did get a Garmin dive. Well, I love to scuba dive, and got the Garmin dive watch, and it had all the performance and exercise metrics that the standard Garmin watch does, and so on there it tracks your sleep, and you can see sleep quality. Well, for so long, I mean, society tells you that you need to have a nightcap because you're going to sleep better, and I sleep better after a couple beers, and I learned that is so far from the truth. I did feel like I slept okay then, but now I had a metric that I could follow and measure, and I would play with it. It would tell you your sleep quality, and I could drink beer grilling at noon watching a football game, and then see where that went. Versus ultimately, I found through tracking it, anytime I drank even one beer after 3 p.m. in the afternoon, I could measure when I could negatively affect, and I could repeat it. I mean, it was almost like a lab experiment. And for me, I was like, I value my sleep. Once I learned what good sleep was, that's when I really started going there. And so at that point, I still would, if I was going to drink a beer, it might be at lunch working on the grill, but I was really conscious of that 3 p.m. window for me, for my body. That's where I noticed the biggest change in my sleep patterns. And who wants to drink at noon and have a headache at 3? And it just became to where it was just a nuisance. You start to realize that, ultimately alcohol's poison. It's like processed sugar or anything else. It can taste good, but ultimately it's negatively affecting your health. So I just
Yeah.
took it out of my life, took it out of my diet.
What led you to completely stop for good and not just stay in kind of that sober curious world? What led you to the decision? Because you haven't drank in, I think it's like 18 months. So what was the ultimate reason for that?
So when we stopped drinking because of my uncle, I kind of still then I was more sober curious. Like, well, I'm not completely stopping. You're not going to tell me I'm not an all or nothing kind. Like I'll do what I want kind of attitude. But I would not drink more than two. But then when you and I had a relationship, I really highly respect your sobriety, and I'm not going to drink around you. And I think the more we were around each other, the less I really didn't have as many opportunities, and realized in the opportunities where I was with you, I didn't need it. I didn't need it as part. I didn't miss it. You're spending money for a headache. Ultimately, definitely was the type of drinker that if I have one, I'm going to have a headache. So I need two. If I drink two, I'm going to drink six. And if I drink six, then we're going to 15. We're going to do this. Yeah. And I knew in my mind and strong-willed enough to know that I'm not going beyond two, and I don't want a headache. My little brother's sober. He's openly sober about it and does sober coaching. And in support of him, it's become a lifestyle for me. But I think ultimately my life is way better because I choose not to.
Yeah. It's interesting because you are someone, in some ways, and this is just my opinion about it, it may be a little bit harder to get sober that first year because you didn't have a rock bottom moment, right? And you aren't attached to a community. You don't need the community necessarily like other people do who get sober. Someone like me, right, who had really, really low lows and had to get sober to save my life, right? Your story's different than that. And so in some ways, it almost leaves the door a little bit open for you to walk back in it, which can be hard, right? So I guess my question for you there is that first year, what kind of advice would you give to someone that's kind of in your same shoes to keep them going that first year?
I think when I first started, I drank a lot of NA beers just because I liked beer. I really enjoyed a good beer. So I drank an NA beer, but I mean, as an athlete, it's too much sugar. I was spending $10 on a 6-pack of non-alcoholic beer loaded with sugar. So that was ultimately when I quit even drinking the NA beer. And I don't drink sugar at all. Typically I'll drink unsweet tea or water or black coffee. That's kind of my go-to. So it kind of bland in that way, but I think it wasn't worth the extra sugar, but it did help. The NA beers transitioning off, it wasn't a trigger. I like the idea of being someone out there that doesn't have to, but I choose to, and it could be a good influence. Ultimately, I don't want to be a stumbling block for someone that struggles.
Yeah, I agree. I love that about you. I have a few more questions before we do our lightning round. So, what do you say when someone questions you? Because I feel like someone like me, I don't get questioned as much because most people know my story. But someone like you who chose to get sober, like, what do you say to someone that's like, come on, man, just have one, or why aren't you drinking, or almost like trying to get you to go back into that world? What's your response to those people?
I still need my sleep. Doing Ironman training, there's no time to hardly get the training in, and our kids and our jobs and all of these things in life. So by science, that's going to negatively affect my sleep. So that's ultimately being active and fit is a big driver to why I don't have time for it. I need my sleep. Ready
Yeah.
pushing my body to the limit.
Yeah, that's a good response. I like that. I wanted to talk a little bit about your athletic endeavors because me and you both were athletes when we were younger, and then now in our 40s have kind of reemerged as athletes. So, kind of give us that take. What got you into the sport? You're a triathlete. So, how did that become?
I don't know because I hate structure. I hate the fact that I have to train. The part drives me a little bit crazy, and I rebel. And I'm bad about training. Sometimes I don't train as much as I should just because I don't want to do it because I'm supposed to. I do enjoy it though. I enjoy running. I can tell you it hurts, and it didn't hurt when in my 20s. It hurts now, but it's part of it. I think a lot of it was taming a little bit. I call it the crazy, whatever the noise is between the ears. I don't think it's crazy. It's normal. It's life. It's all those different things. Yeah, I think we all have these. I think I get a little bit of the best of all worlds. I can really lower my stress level, get a little endorphin rush, and I look and feel better. So as far as the triathlon world, I fought it for so long because my mom has done a half Ironman. She's training with us now that we're all going to do Jacksonville. My stepdad Bob, he's a Ironman, done several, done a lot of training, and they always were trying to encourage me to get into it. And in those days, it's no way. You spend way too much time training. That's going to get in the way of my beer drinking. And now it's like the beer drinking is going to get in the way of my training. So I do enjoy it. I like it. I like doing it with you. I think that's one of the things that makes our marriage beautiful is we both have athletic endeavors. You're a lot faster than me at running. And I enjoy watching it and celebrating you. And I love to tell people that my wife was faster than me.
You're way faster than me on the bike in the pool, though. So, but we're actually
Yeah.
doing your first Ironman together in just a few months. I'm excited. We're going to do that side by side and cross the finish line together.
Yep. I look forward to that. And a little intimidating, the half. I don't think it was terribly hard, but it was a lot of training and got through it. But the full is a whole nother level. So I look forward to doing it with you and my parents.
You did so good at your half. I took my job as Ironman cheerleader very seriously. And I was just screaming your name, cheering you on, cheering everyone on there. I felt like it was my responsibility. And you were just so even keel. That's just you though. You were just calm the whole time. Every time I saw you, you were just level headed. But you coming to support me for my Ironman, I was the opposite of that. I think we are very much yin and yang, and it's probably why we work so well together. I was hot mess express, up, down, ended up in the hospital after. I think doing this next one together is going to be a lot better for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you cue me to eat and take in salt, you're a good influence in my life.
Yeah, you as well.
So I have one more question before the lightning round. If you were able to time travel and go back in time to your younger self, let's say 15, what would you say to that kid on Lake Burton?
I think I would say trauma is not your fault, but healing is your responsibility. I've always been fairly responsible, but I think a lot of those early years after Dad's death. I really just like put the blame on him. I was mad at him, but I missed him, and I was super protective of him at the same time. I'm extremely protective by nature, those that I'm close to. So I would get mad at myself for being mad at him. But I think I spent so much time focusing on all the external factors of all that. That healing was my responsibility, and I hate that it took all the way till 2023, 2024, finding a good counselor to really. I healed a lot of things that I could have probably experienced life a whole lot differently had I taken more personal responsibility on my own healing. And we're not victims. We might be victim of a circumstance, but what we do with it from there is our fault. Absolutely got to drop the victim card.
I love that so much. Very well said, sir. Hans of the Southern Isles. Okay, we have made it to our lightning round. I have brand new questions for season 2. You are the first one to receive the brand new questions.
All right.
Are you excited about that?
I am.
All right, question number 1. Do you have any hidden talent?
I don't know. I'm fairly open.
You are a guitar player. You play
Little
very
bit.
well.
A little bit.
Yeah, I would say that's a hidden talent.
Growing up from home and bluegrass and just the Appalachia culture, and I can't play guitar, but in those standards, I'm not very good.
I think you're good. I love listening to you play.
No, well, I'll play for you.
So play me some Taylor Swift, okay? Number 2, what is one song that puts you in a good mood?
I'd say maybe Starting Over by Chris Stapleton.
That's our song.
Yeah, it is.
That's our Act 2 song of our life.
Absolutely.
That was a good answer, sir.
Win me some points.
Your points are off the chart, honey. All right, number 3. What is the last concert you've been to?
The last big official concert would have been Chris Stapleton with Willie Nelson.
Sounds like a good show.
Yeah, that was a good show.
What would be your last meal?
I'm gluten-free, unfortunately, because I love bread, but
if it's your last meal, you could just go all out.
Terrible arthritis, so eat all the bread. All of the breads.
Just a plate of bread.
No, with some meatloaf, just a good Southern meat and 3 with mac and cheese. I love macaroni and cheese, and I can't eat it. So, and anything gluten-free is gross.
Yeah. So would you add some chow chow in there?
I love chow chow. I had that last night on my black-eyed peas and collards for New Year's.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Last question, kind of heavy. What kind of legacy do you want to leave behind?
I really my parents do the best job they know. I don't fault my parents and not Dad for his life choices. Hell, he was dealing with trauma from when he was a kid. My mom was hard as shit on me, but she did the best job she knew how, and she just had high expectations, and she was living kind of in the same way that you and I are now. We don't know what we can't until we reflect back on how our kids turn out. We don't know how they're going to turn out. We're just doing the best we can, and I think our parents were that way. So I think teaching my kid, our kids too, but, I have a passion for Janice and helping her understand what I've gone through and help her process things that she goes through life, and hope that I can just reverse that generational trauma that we unintentionally leave down, so that maybe she can just continue to be the catalyst for change. How to process and deal with things and feel your feelings and feel them all the way out. Set great boundaries and hold people accountable, and understand that sometimes it's okay to cut people out of your life if they're not treating you the way the boundary that you set and the expectations that you set, and really be your own person while also being an absolute servant to everyone that you can within reason, but never. My 3 rules, and I tell them to our kids, all 4 of them, is be nice, clean up after yourself, and don't take shit off of anybody. And then that last one, you got to really remember, number 1, be nice. You can still set really hard boundaries and be nice. So everything can be handled with tact and just being a gentle lady or a gentleman.
Yeah. I think you turned out pretty well.
Well, thank you, baby.
You have taught me so much about life, about having boundaries, about how to stand up for myself. I am extremely, extremely grateful for you. I'm not going to cry, but I can't thank you enough. I can't thank you enough for being vulnerable, for coming on the show, for sharing your story, for being just you. You're an amazing, amazing person. And I love you with all my heart.
I love you too, and I'm proud of you. You do a good thing here. So, and I love your selfless gift to to the masses. So keep it up.
All right, hon. I love you. I'll see you later.
Okay. I love you too.
Bye.
Bye.